Hello there, I'm Sarah, your natural endometriosis expert. Welcome to my podcast. This is the place to be for information, advice and tips on managing your endometriosis naturally. I've been managing my own endo now successfully for about 20 years, and I've been running my own therapy business since 2008, helping others to do the same. If you're curious to cut through all the noise and rubbish that's out there and learn the key to managing endometriosis with minimal reliance on drugs and surgery, then this is the only podcast you'll need. Let's get started. Hello there. So today we're going to talk about period pain, all things period pain and endometriosis. We're also going to have a look at adenomyosis as well, because one of the main things about adenomyosis is the pain. Adenomyosis is the evil twin or the evil cousin of endometriosis, and it's very common that the two go hand in hand. And one of the major symptoms, one of the major identifiers of adenomyosis is the pain. So it's worth talking about adenomyosis today in this podcast. So we will. So we're going to talk about what healthy pain feels like in terms of a menstrual cycle. We're going to talk a little bit about what the cycle does and why we get the pain. We're going to talk about where the pain is and how it manifests in terms of endo and adenomyosis. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some quick top tips that you can do to alleviate the pain that you may be feeling. First thing, pain is a massive subject when it comes to endometriosis. I actually run a 90-minute webinar on endometriosis and pain. So this podcast is just going to kind of scratch at the surface of pain, but I hope it's going to give you enough information that will enable you to manage your pain a little bit better, or certainly to understand it as well if it isn't enough for you to manage it, but I'm hoping it will be. So the first thing to say about period pain is that period pain is not healthy. We are told a lot when we are being educated, and thankfully this is changing, but we are told a lot when we're educated about the period that pain is part and parcel of being a woman. And that's so sad because it really isn't. In a healthy period, you should have 1 to 3 days of mild cramping. That's as much as you should be feeling when you're having or in the run up to the bleed part of your cycle. It tends to start 1 or 2 days before you bleed and can maybe lead to the first day of the actual bleed. So it's important to say that if you're getting pain that lasts longer than that, or if you're getting pain that's more severe than that, that can be a symptom that there's something else going on, so it's worth getting checked out. In a healthy period, in a healthy menstrual cycle, that's the only time that you should feel these crampings and things. If you're getting pain at any other part of the cycle, even ovulation, then again that's a symptom that there could be something going on and it's worth getting investigated. So a healthy period shouldn't have any pain. I'll say that again. A healthy period shouldn't have any pain. Certainly not pain that's debilitating, that requires you to take a day or two or longer in bed. That's not a healthy cycle. And it's so sad. Most people who come to see me don't come to me because of the pain that they're experiencing. Even if that pain does mean that even 1, 2, 3 weeks of the year, that would be nice, 3 weeks of the month, they are experiencing crippling pain. There is still a mentality there that's part and parcel of a period. Most people come to see, the main reason people come to seek my help is the fatigue, the level of fatigue that's impacting on their life. Which is really sad because people, like I say, could be having crippling pain and they're just like, oh yeah, no, I just manage that. I just make adjustments for that. It's the fatigue I can't deal with. We should be looking at this pain and really seeking help, because that's what is the most debilitating. Well, actually, no, fatigue is pretty debilitating as well, but pain isn't part and parcel. And we shouldn't see it as normal. We shouldn't see it as just something to manage. It should be something that we do seek help with. But sadly, that rhetoric is still there, that it's still just part and parcel of being a woman. If I can do anything to change that rhetoric, I do and I will. So yeah, interestingly, it's one of the most common symptoms of endometriosis, but it's not necessarily the main reason that people seek help. Also important to stress as well that not everybody gets pain with endometriosis. We talk about endometriosis being a painful condition, and quite often if you Google endometriosis, if you speak to doctors about endometriosis, they will talk about it as a painful condition. And for many, many, many women, it is incredibly painful. However, for some women, there's no pain involved at all. and that does not detract from your endometriosis. If you have endometriosis and you don't have pain, then you're still valid. You still have endometriosis, and all the other stuff that you've got going on with your endo is not minimalised just because you don't have pain with it. Also important to state as well that quite a few people over the years have come to me saying they don't have pain with their endometriosis, and actually when we start tracking things, they do have pain, some quite significant pain, but they've always just believed that that's part of a normal cycle, so they don't put it down to their endometriosis. So you may think you don't have pain with your endometriosis, but if you're getting any pain in your cycle, then please do list pain as one of the symptoms, even if it doesn't have you in bed for 3 days, even if it's just debilitating pain for a day, or however your pain manifests. Please do list it as a symptom of your endo. Don't just think, oh no, that's just my period, that's not my endometriosis. These are all linked. Any pain other than light flutterings for 1, 2, 3 days a cycle is worth putting down as an endo symptom. So why do we get pain? Well, in a textbook menstrual cycle, what happens is essentially around that time of the cycle, the egg hasn't been fertilized, so the body sheds the egg along with the uterus lining. So the lining of the womb is shed by the body because it's not needed. So essentially what happens before that is it's getting nice and plump, ready for implantation. Implantation doesn't happen, so it's all essentially it's shedded. And what happens to shed that? Well, the womb essentially contracts. So it's kind of the same contractions that you get when you're having a baby, but on a very, 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 very minimal scale. So it's nowhere near as painful as having a baby in a textbook, in a healthy cycle. So when you in a healthy cycle, when you feel the flutterings, that's essentially your womb muscles contracting gently, almost like a wave effect, to help the shedding of this lining. When you have adenomyosis, so adenomyosis is where the endometrial type tissue sits, similar to endo, but it's when the endometrial type tissue implants directly into the uterus lining. So whilst the uterus is doing its gentle contractions, you're getting this ripping apart of the adenomyosis, of the endotype tissue. So even though the movements are gentle, and it might not be the contractions are any harder, it could just be the gentle flowing contractions that a healthy cycle would see. But because you've got that scar tissue there, that adhesion, the endometriosis type adenomyosis, you're essentially ripping open a scab every time that happens. And that's why you get that intense searing heat pain, the stabbing pain deep in your womb. That's because of the scar tissue that's in the muscle lining. So every time, if you think about bending your finger with a scab on it and you bend it, gets tight, which hurts, and then if you bend it a little bit further, it rips it open. The exact same thing's happening in the womb lining, in the muscles. So that's why you get such intense pain with adenomyosis, and that's because although the endometrial type tissue isn't as widespread as endometriosis, the positioning of the tissue means that at that specific point in the period, it's just massively intensifying the feelings that's happening, because you're in essence ripping open scar tissue every time the contraction happens. With endometriosis, you're getting pain all over the place. So you could be getting it at any point, because essentially what's happening with endometriosis is the womb type lining, the womb type tissue, the womb lining type tissue is growing in any place, and that tissue acts in exactly the same way that the womb lining is doing. So if you've got endometriosis adhesions on, say, your bowel, then those adhesions are acting in the same way that the womb lining is. So it's swelling just before the bleed, and then it's shedding. So it's doing the exact same thing. So that's why you're getting the pain in other places when you've got endometriosis. It's because you've got this womb transition happening outside of the womb, this womb tissue transition happening outside of the womb. So that's why you're getting these weird feelings. And sometimes it isn't even pain. Sometimes it's just like a feeling that something is there that shouldn't be there. That's why you're getting these feelings, because your endometrial type tissue is everywhere else other than where it should. Well, you've got it where it should be as well, but it's growing everywhere else, or somewhere else, and it's acting in the same way. So you're getting the same sensations outside of the womb that's happening within the womb tissue in the womb. Now, the reason for this with endometriosis is not quite, it can be the same as adenomyosis. So you can have it on your muscles. So you can have it, so when your muscles are contracting, so when you're moving, because the tissue is swollen and shedding, even if you're moving normally. So if you've got it, quite often it can be implanted on the muscles and the tendons and the connective tissue just throughout the abdomen. So as you're moving normally, as you're walking, as you're standing up, twisting, you're doing the exact same thing as I've just talked about with adenomyosis. You're kind of essentially ripping open a scab. So when you're moving and it's hurting, that's why it's hurting. It's hurting where you've got the endometriosis lesions, and those lesions are swelling, they're shedding, but as you're moving it, it's like ripping open that scar tissue. So that's why it's happening with endometriosis. One of the reasons that it's happening as well is hormonal imbalance. A lot of women, we just assume that we've got two major hormones in our bodies. We don't. We have a plethora of hormones that's going on. And at any point in our cycle, these hormones are at a very, very delicate balance. These hormones are working together to trigger certain events throughout our menstrual cycle. At this part of our cycle, essentially what's happening is there are two hormones that are working together at this part of our cycle, in essence, to start the shedding of the womb lining. So essentially, what happens? Our body knows it's not pregnant, so the cycle, the balance of the hormones shifts, and the hormones start telling our womb lining that it's not needed. So it's the hormones that are triggering the shedding. Now, if you have a hormonal imbalance element to your endometriosis, and again, not everybody does, but if you have this hormonal imbalance to your endometriosis, this can massively impact on the pain as well. It can impact in two ways. It essentially can impact on the strength of the contractions. So quite often, when I was saying before about how how the contractions are nowhere like the contractions when you're having a baby, actually what can happen if you've got an imbalance of the hormone that's triggering the contractions, your contractions can feel like you're having a baby, and anywhere in between on that sliding scale, because your body is being told by that the overproduction of that particular hormone. Through that overproduction, your body is being told that it's time to have a contraction, and that can be akin to having a baby. So when you hear people saying they're fainting with the pain, it's like they're having a baby, that's because the hormone is so imbalanced that it's telling the womb to contract like it was trying to give birth. Again, the second hormone, well, the other hormones, there are still other hormones at play, but the second major hormone also increases the amount of swelling and the amount of sort of production of blood and tissue. So essentially that's what's happening to cause the pain. So it's not that anything different's happening. We're still having the exact same process of a healthy menstrual cycle. It's just something is slightly out of balance. Then you add in the scar tissue, you add in the adhesions, you add in the overabundance of the endometrial type tissue, and you have just a hodgepodge of painful things going on. Some of you will have all of these, some of you will have just maybe one or two adhesions, so it does vary. And again, it doesn't detract. You might have tons of pain, you might have no pain. It doesn't detract from how severe you have your endometriosis and the other symptoms, the other things that you've got going on. It's just a very personal thing in terms of your pain. So in terms of managing your pain, in terms of reducing your pain, like I say, it's really, normal does not equate to healthy. It's really important to understand what pain looks like for you, what is normal for you. Normal does not mean healthy, and normal does not mean that it's going to be normal forever. But once you understand what is normal for your cycle, you can then start to address it. And when you address it, normal disappears and you move from normal to healthy. It is doable. It is very doable. It doesn't have to be arduous to do it. But the key thing is to understand how pain manifests for you. So what type of pain are you getting? When are you getting it? Once you understand that, you can really start to address it, because you can look to start to see whether you have a hormonal element, whether it is non-hormonal, whatever's going on for you, you can start to understand it. And that's when you can start to address it, when you understand what's causing it. One of the major things as well to say here is a lot of period pain. In the last episode, we talked about period shame and how period shame can cause us to, and that sounds like I'm putting the blame on us. The blame isn't on us at all. None of this is your fault. But essentially what happens is the body goes through some learned responses. So if you're dealing with things like shame, if you're dealing with things like anxiety and fear, then that can cause your period pain to manifest so much harder. So it actually impacts on your period pain. Anxiety, if you think about what happens to your body when you're anxious, all your muscles tense up. So if you've got tense muscles, those contractions are going to hurt even more. The same way, exactly the same way as if you're having a baby or if you're constipated. That tension, that muscle tension just hurts so much more. When you're giving blood, when you're having a blood test, the more tense you are, the more it hurts. It's exactly the same with your period pain. So the first thing is, if in terms of managing pain, is relaxation. When we talk about breathing exercises, and I've had so much rubbish thrown at me over the years for sort of saying one of the key things in terms of period pain management is correct breath work, but it's so true. Breathing deep into the abdomen, taking long breaths. Shallow breaths are really bad. If you're breathing from the top part of your lungs, that can exacerbate stress. So make sure when you're breathing nice, long, deep breaths deep into the abdomen. That is fantastic in terms of increasing oxygen, decreasing tension, and therefore decreasing the level of pain that you're experiencing. It's not getting to the cause. This is very much just symptom management. But in terms of symptom management, breath work is really important. Also, in terms of symptom management, prevention is better than cure. So keep hydrated. Again, we're talking about muscles, we're talking about body tissue. The amount of water, the percentage of water in our bodies is huge. And the more we drink, the more hydrated we are, the better everything works. Think about it in terms of athletes. If you're exercising and you're dehydrated, things start to cramp, things don't work very well. It's exactly the same principle when it comes to your menstrual cycle. The more hydrated you are, the easier things flow. And the more hydrated your muscles are, the less painful the whole thing is. So relaxation, sleep is massively important. Get some good sleep. When you understand how your cycle works, when you understand how it manifests for you, you can start to see when you will be bleeding. So you'll know in advance when you will be getting your pain. If your pain happens a week, 2 weeks before bleeding, then once you understand your cycle, you'll be able to pinpoint when your pain is going to start. Make sure you're hydrated before then. Make sure you're getting good sleep. Make sure you're cutting down on all the, quote, unhealthy activities. So things that you know trigger your endo. Because if you're recording everything, if you're tracking everything, you'll know what makes things worse. So cut down on the things that you know make your pain worse. So if it is triggered by diet, if diet is one of your pain triggers, make sure you're not eating things in the run-up to your bleed rather than just at that time, or I say the bleed, in the run-up to the pain rather than just at the time that that pain's happening. Prevention is better than cure. So keep hydrated, keep relaxed, get good sleep in the run-up. So in terms of managing it when it's happening, heat is brilliant. Heat, again, is a really nice way to relax. So we're just talking about relaxing those muscles. The more relaxation we can have, and again, this is just pure symptom management. This is not talking about how to stop the pain happening as such. It will reduce it a little bit, but until you get rid of the endometriosis or the adenomyosis, the pain is an element of the pain is still going to be there. What we're talking about here is reducing the levels of pain that you're getting. Heat's really, really good. Things like hot water bottles, basic heat patches, things like that can really help. Also castor oil packs, if you're using those with heat as well, that's a really nice way because the castor oil draws out some of the toxins as well. So the toxins, it's almost like a lactic acid buildup, the same example as lactic acid. When you're running and you get a stitch, exactly the same can happen with your period pain. So you're kind of getting a buildup of toxins, which is just adding to the pain. And things like stomach massage is really nice for counteracting the pain, and castor oil packs are the same. And they actually get rid of the toxins. They're moving the toxins around, so you're not getting that stagnant buildup of toxins. So I'd recommend those as well. Increase in vitamin E can help, doesn't necessarily help. It depends on what's triggering your pain, but vitamin E can help with, especially if you've got adenomyosis or the contractions. So if the contractions are either really strong, that contraction type pain, or you're getting intense pain with the smaller contractions, vitamin E can often help with that. Like I say, relaxation, getting rid of stress and anxiety from your body, from your mind is essential. Fabulous way to manage pain. And it sounds so simple, and please don't get annoyed when I say it. It isn't simple to do, but the impact it can have is huge. Hydration and de-anxietying yourself, the impact is massive. And then painkillers as well. So I'm not anti painkillers. What I am anti is just popping a painkiller as a preemptive strategy, or every time you feel like you're getting a pain, because your body becomes resilient to painkillers. So the more painkillers you take, the more painkillers you need to take. So try the other methods, and then take the painkillers as a last resort. Your non-steroid anti-inflammatory painkillers are the best. So things like aspirin, naproxen if you have to, but I personally I stay clear of things like that. But if you have to, if you're that bad, and the sort of the other things haven't quite kicked in, ibuprofen is one as well that can really help. So there we have some top tips. So just to reiterate: hydration, relaxation, sleep, gentle movement as well. So gentle movement, again, once you understand your cycle, if you start moving just before you're going to get your pain, that can help prevent some of the pain as well. And when I talk about gentle movement, it's kind of what works best for you. If you're a gym bunny, then high intensity stuff isn't gonna impact negatively at all if your body's used to it. If you're not so much of a gym body, then just doing some gentle qigong movements. There's some fabulous people on YouTube that do really nice qigong movements. If you find something that's qigong for lower back, qigong for abdomen, it's dead simple to do if you do the basics. It's really just nice, gentle, flowing movement. Something so simple as just twisting slowly and gently from, I'm doing it now, which I might sound a bit weird when I'm talking, but it's a sort of twisting really gently, keeping your hips facing forward and just twisting your upper body really, really gently, stretching to the sky. Stand with your legs hip width apart, actively push your feet into the ground. Lift your hands to the ceiling and try and push the ceiling, lifting the sky, it's called. Try and lift the sky. So you're pushing your feet down and you're lifting the sky, you're pushing your hands actively up. That's a really nice gentle stretch. Just nice gentle stretches can do wonders, especially in the run-up, if you don't leave it until you're actually in pain, but in the run-up to the painful period. As in painful time, not painful bleed, because as we know, we can get pain at any time. Vitamin E may help. And your painkillers as well. They're kind of the main top tips I've got. And again, it depends what triggers your pain. It depends how your pain is, how it manifests for you. There are tons of other things you can do as well. So if you do have a top tip for other people, please do let us know, because or pop it in the comments. I was going to say pop it in the comments, but then I couldn't remember if there's comments on podcasts. But anyway, if you do have top tips, whatever works for you, use it, but do try and build in the hydration and the sleep and the movement as a regular thing, because you'll find that if you do that, the pain that starts will be less, so you'll have to deal with less pain as it goes through. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. I'm really sorry if you're struggling with pain at the moment. Just know that there are things you can do to alleviate that pain and to start to feel better. The first thing to do is to believe that you can. The second thing to do is just to take small steps towards it. Track everything, understand how your pain manifests and why it's manifesting for you. And that's the easiest way, or the most comprehensive way, of being able to deal with it longer term. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really hope that you found this podcast helpful. If you did, please hit follow so you can listen to more, and please also share it with anyone else who you think will benefit. And don't forget, if you're looking for women's health treatments, workshops or support within your workplace, you can find all of my services, including our monthly virtual clinic, over at www.healthywomen'shealth.com. I'll see you next time.